sure that I would make it to the session on time, or indeed get there at all that evening, I had told my players and DM that they could feel free to take control of my player, or make them an NPC and have them follow around and contribute in some way. And in a way, I sort of wish I wasn't able to make it there, because I think as an NPC, I would have been able to do significantly more with the way the DM was rolling. On the other hand, if I wasn't there, I would have missed out on a lot of hilarity, and I wouldn't have been able to do what a Cleric of the Grave does. A session took place in the Cragmaw Hideout, and in the, I think, about 3 3/4 hours that we were there, we'd only just made it to Phandelver. I think at that point the DM wanted to go and see their wife, and I think everyone else wanted to get off to bed because that game had really taken it out of us. And it'd taken a lot of things, namely but still, never mind. So we were in the cave Cragmaw Hideout. We just freed some wolves who hadn't managed to detect the burnt goblin in the bushes who we had tied up, and who would be of some use later. But you've got to stick around to find out what happened there. So the party was immediately deciding that we're going to press on and try and find this eating cave that the goblin outsider was called, and we found out later as well his name is Gauze. And Gauze had told us about this eating cave where Sildar Hallwinter was, and he'd given us vague directions as to where to go. And so we followed those directions, or initially we thought we would. There was the sound of waves from the stream that was rather shallow and posed virtually no threat to our travel. But there was no point of really going there. We stuck along the side of the rock. However, there was suddenly a thunderous, a roar. And we were trying to figure out what the sound was. And eventually we heard crashing. The only kind of crashing that could, of course, come from water. We had to throw dexterity saving throws to make sure that we could stand against the water, and unfortunately, not enough of us did. I managed to leap out of the way with few problems at all. My elderly dwarf is more dexterous than he ought to be, really, but he makes it out of the way all the same, and I think Emil is knocked prone as well, but Eliza is fine. And unfortunately, Shoria takes the full brunt of this, and this is where the rolls really began to go downhill, or indeed downstream. So Shoria is knocked back near to the entrance of the cave, and she takes 5 hit points of damage, I believe. It's a lot of damage for a warlock to take, given that she doesn't have a constitution modifier either, so she's only got 8 hit points. So she's now left with about 3 hit points of health left. And Garveld, Cleric of the Grave, goes back, and I sort of help her up. And unfortunately, I don't have any prestidigitation or anything like that, so I can't really dry her off and help anyone out who was caught. Emil was knocked prone as well, but I don't think he suffered any damage, mercifully. And Eliza, meanwhile, while we're sort of dusting ourselves off, or rather drying ourselves off, Eliza's looking around to see if that was some sort of trap. Perception check doesn't reveal that it was natural or a trap, so we press on and have a look around in this larger area of the cave. Now it's here where we actually see where the source of this massive sudden surge of water came from. There is a waterfall that's sort of got water trickling down, but there's also a dam formation. So it could have been man-made, or it could have been natural. I say natural as the rocks sort of piling up and forming, that may be. Or it might have been the form of goblins, whether they were smart enough to manipulate water in such a way. I don't really know. So anyway. So we're going into this part of the cave. I should say as well that because everyone in the party has dark vision, we can see rather easily in the cave. Unfortunately, we don't spot the 3 goblins that are waiting for us to sort of move into such a position where basically all of our corners are easily attackable. So the marching order was Eliza in front. We're all sort of heading towards the western end of the cave, towards the bridge. So it's Eliza in front, followed by Emil. Shoria is covered between myself and Emil, and I'm at the back. And the goblins immediately start their ambush. There's 2 goblins flanking Eliza. There's one that's just sort of near the bridge in that sort of little gap. by the bridge. And there's another one as well that's just sort of leaped in and struck her 5 points of damage because she doesn't make the dexterity saving throw. Now these goblins are really crafty. They're using hit and run tactics, so they slice at Eliza and they immediately disengage and run away. And you've got another goblin as well that's going across the bridge trying to hide. And there's another one as well that's in the sort of waterfall area, sort of laughing, giggling about the trap that he'd set with the waterfall, noticing how drenched we were, and probably hearing our wails of torment. So this goblin's there with his short bow, and yeah, things go to pot. So the initiative is that the goblins roll best with 12, so it's not a great roll, but it's not a terrible one. It's decent, and it's certainly the best roll. The goblins get an initiative 12, Eliza gets initiative of 5, Emil gets initiative of 4, Shoria gets 2, and so do I. Now, I'd previously gone first in combat, so I decided that seeing as Shoria hasn't been the first in combat yet, bearing in mind we only had one combat before, and that was in the previous session, I decided that I'll let her have initiative 2.1, and I can go afterwards and sort of see to everyone's wounds after. And I think it works out that well when the healer's sort of making sure that everyone's had their damage and their sort of reactions attacked and things like that. So anyway, so the combat begins, and these goblins are now trying to sort of hit and run and do all manner of things. Emil is rather annoyed by the impudence of this goblin, so he runs over to the goblin in the waterfall now and tries to strike him with his warhammer and fails miserably, as indeed we all do. Eliza's also running towards a goblin that's headed towards the east of the cave, towards a wall, and is trying to sort of stab him with their rapier. Unfortunately, that goblin is then going to run back to Shoria and myself and try and after disengaging from Eliza, who's now going to chase back after this one. I'm now forming a chokehold at my shield and generally just my fat form in the tunnel between the bridge and the rest of the players. So this other goblin who's run across the bridge isn't looking so good. I toll the dead. I cast this dirty great ringing sound, and unfortunately it doesn't do anything to him. He saves. I think it's a wisdom saving throw that he has to make, and he's sort of wondering where's the bell coming from. We don't have no bells. We have no need for stinking bells. Or however the quote goes. I've just completely butchered that. I apologise, everyone. Yes, and so then the next round of combat begins, and it's sort of back and forth between the goblins running to and fro and whatnot. They're trying to sort of hit and run, going back and forth, and I have to say I admire the tactics here. I really did like how they sort of immediately just got us into a clump, and then also as well separated the party in some ways. I think our DM was taking mercy on the on poor Shoria, who only had 3 hit points, because I think she was in a perfect position to be hit, and I think these goblins would have ended up, knocking her unconscious. Not that I'm complaining about the mercy that we were granted, especially when one goblin had thrown themselves to their death. They tried to strike Garveld, but his gigantic heater shield was not having any of it. He struck the shield and he tried to disengage, and he was going to leap off the bridge and climb up the stairs and maybe sort of attack the undefended Shoria, now that Emil had gone to this goblin to the pools in the north. Unfortunately, this goblin who leapt off the bridge wasn't really having much luck, because I had asked the DM how high that bridge was, and he said it was. I was thinking it must have been about something like 10 feet, but apparently it's 20 feet. So this goblin had to make an athletics check, and this is one of those times where I'm really glad that I was a teacher's pet and said, "Miss, that goblin should have to do an athletics check or whatever. And he did an athletics check, and he failed miserably. And I was so glad at that, because we hadn't had any luck at this point whatsoever. So this goblin leapt off the bridge and just smashed his skull to smithereens, exploded his head all over the pavement, or I say the pavement, I guess it is a bit of a pavement in a way, but anyway, all over this stone, and I was just internally cackling to myself. And he just exploded his head, just blown to smithereens, because he just died instantly. And that was a sad footnote to that goblin's short, miserable life. So anyway, so Eliza's actually having some luck with this other goblin that sort of runs back, trying to attack myself, and she runs this goblin through with a rapier and pins him to the rock. She penetrates the rock, along with this goblin's innards, obviously, and just kills him. It just kills him outright, and she pulls the rapier out. There's this burst of blood shooting out of his innards that are now becoming outards. And yeah, she's rather pleased. She has a quip as well, but I don't think I have it here. Oh yeah, so she's also shouting to Emil as well. I hope you can deal with that goblin. He's shouting. I hope so too. As he's in the corner with this other goblin, because he's taken a lot of damage from this now. He's taken I think about 5 hit points of damage, and oh no, sorry, he hits him for. Oh no. Yeah, I think I meant to say he was hit for 9 hit points or something like that. It's really in poor shape. And this goblin, I think his name is Skeeve or Skis. I can't quite remember. I don't think I have the details here. Oh, Scree. His name was Scree, sorry. Yes, so Scree. So this Scree slices at him with his scimitar and licks the blood off the scimitar as well as a reaction. And he's going, dwarf blood! And all the others now are just sort of clamouring for dwarf blood and elf blood and human blood. I should say, before they all died. I'm not very good at structuring these stories. I'm doing it mostly off the top of my head, and this time I didn't have any screenshots to take, I'm afraid. I had no recordings whatsoever. And for the record as well, there will be fewer visual aids later. I'll try and put maps up and things like that, but I have been told that the players are rather sensitive about their voices and other such identifiers part of the internet. So that's fine, I respect that. So anyway, so Emil then takes another hit, and he goes down, and he's down to -2 hit points. Shoria, having seen this display, I think she explodes this goblin here, ruptures every fibre of his being for 15 points of damage, I believe. And yeah, I think then yes, either. Yes, I think she hits him for this goblin for 15 damage. The combat is now over. These 3 goblins are dead in horrible fashions as well. I think this is the goriest mess we've ever made, even before the previous session. Even with the previous session where we'd sort of just smashed 2 goblins' heads in, and that's a bit of a theme in this session, as you may come to find out soon. So anyway, so Emil goes down. I immediately, cast Spare the Dying as I'm running over. I'm given the sort of symbol of Kellenvor. I don't know how I'm going to flavour that, to be honest. I'm thinking it's a skeletal hand holding these 2 weighing scales, so I might make it like that, or something like that. Like that. I don't know, but I want a nice symbol or a nice gesture in prayer. I might have to find out what sort of prayer symbol for Kellenvor is. I don't know. But anyway, so I'm casting Spare the Dying on Emil, whose blood's running into the stream, and I think that's at least cleaning the wound of these probably very dirty goblin scimitars. And he's now stabilised, and I also heal him for 1d4 plus 2, so 6 HP, because when he's at 0 HP, I get to do the full amount. Huzzah! So that's my shtick, basically. That's what I've always tried to say with people. I'm not a healer, I'm a not dying, I make sure that once you're at 0, I'll heal you when you're at 0 HP, because that's when you get the most benefit. But yeah, people have to go down, and then I'll cast spare the daggers bonus action, and then I'll heal you afterwards, and you're still back in the combat if combat's still going on. So, anyway, Emil's now brought to the shore by Eliza. Thanks to Given and thanks to Taken, and we then proceed to the Eating Cave. Now, this is where a bit of valuable feedback came in, because essentially I think 3 of the 4 players were sort of talking over one of them, and we had basically decided for this other player that instead of going to the southernmost cave now, where all this combat was taking place, that we surprisingly the commotion wasn't heard. I guess it was because of the waves crashing, and not crashing as such, but like the waterfall was very, very loud and the water was trickling. So the creatures within this southern cave that we would later be facing did not hear us, and we could have taken them out had we sort of taken another player's advice on board, but we were going for the most optimal route, which was not a mistake, but I think it is something we're going to keep in mind, that we will be exploring. We will be going room to room and checking our corners, so to speak, because it's not really right that we just take the most effective route and ignore the whims of another player. Another thing as well is I should be leaving this for the feedback section for the end, but I think we should also be having like an initiative system outside of combat and just making sure that everyone has a chance to speak. Because I was really vocal in this session. I was really involved, a lot more than I've ever been. But we do need to, sort of work on making sure that everyone's had a say in the votes and and how we're going to do things. Because I think Shoria felt that she was an Eldritch Blast turret, and a very effective one. I think she killed the most things in this entire session, but still we'll keep that in mind for next time. So we're proceeding now to the Eating Cave across the bridge in a line formation. There is, I think it was Emil in front. Yes, it was Emil in front, Garveld behind him, and then I was assuming that Shoria would be between myself and Eliza, because she has a shield and she can watch our backs. And I think personally, I think I'm turning her into a bit of a perception turret also. Like, she's just the eyes of the party. What do your elf eyes see, Eliza? But yeah, so anyway, so we proceed, and that wasn't really the best tactic, because we could have been taken from behind. But thankfully we weren't. Oh, that's another double entendre as well. Emil's thing is that he says double entendres and he doesn't quite get where the giggles are coming from. So when he went down and he got back up again, he'd said, everyone has performance issues, ha ha ha. Moving on to the Eating Cave now. Emil immediately goes first into this. I keep saying immediately, I apologize. Emil goes into this Eating Cave, seeing Sildar Hullwinter sort of groaning with these last few gasps of life, tied to a rock. And as he's sort of peering around the corner to his right, he's seeing 4 goblins snacking away. From what I understand, I think we originally thought that maybe they were eating one of his legs or something like that, but thankfully they weren't. As far as I'm aware, anyway, I assume he's all in one piece, because we'll get around to that later. So Emil walks in and he's sort of there on his own, and one of these goblins at the back, and there's one with his back to us and 3 at the back, and this one looks over the goblin on the front shoulder and says something along the lines of meat. Or we have dinner guests, things like that, to that effect. So Emil, they're not attacking, because Emil does a perception check and he notices that they get up, but they're not attacking. And this is apparently different to our DM's other party, where they just immediately rushed in and attacked, which is fair. They are goblins, some sort of evil alignment creature. It's natural that you would want to go straight up against them. However, Emil notices they're not attacking, so he's thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't attack. So he's slowly inching his way towards Sildar, towards the east, towards the south now of this cave, and he's reaching the embankment. And if he were to climb there, it would be an action, and the goblins would probably initiate combat. So the goblins begin diplomacy. Now, this is all improvised, what happened here, and to be honest, I'm really glad that, you know, our player Emil, Emil Cragwalker was doing this, because I would not have had the first clue on how to do this. Like, I like persuasion in games. I do. I love using the persuasion skill, but I am the most shy person ever, and I can't role play persuasion. It's why I need dialogue boxes and a percentage chance on if I'm going to succeed or not. Yeah, I need the New Vegas style of dialogue. Because I can't talk. I mean, as you could probably tell from these videos, I talk incoherently all the time. So how the hell I do persuasion quite like Emil did here, I've no idea. So, Emil is now sort of negotiating with his goblins for the release of Sildar Hallwinter, and he says, as his opening gambit, he's sort of saying, look, we've got your friend Scree outside, because Scree had said his name earlier, and this was really useful. I'm glad that Emil had remembered this. And I do like as well that our DM has sort of given us these hints so that we can use these characters as leverage. Now, Scree was, you know, had his brains splattered all over the walls, whichever wall it was, I don't know. But it was probably guts and or brains somewhere. But Emil had lied, and I think he'd succeeded in convincing this goblin that he was still alive. Now, the head goblin here, and as we would find out, quite a stronger one as well, didn't really care about Scree, because, you know, what do I care about Scree? He is a... What am I going to do with a... So, things aren't going all that well. However, in terms of negotiation, but Captain, so this guy introduced himself as, he sort of asks, you know, what's your name, dwarf? And he says he's Emil Cragwalker. And he says, well, I am Captain... I had his name on the tip of my tongue, I just completely forgot. His name is Captain Yimik, I think his name is. Captain Yimik. He says, well, I am Captain Yimik, and I've got a bit of a problem. Do you like problems? And Emil's like, no, I don't like problems. I apologise, Sam, for that, okay? So Captain Yimik goes, good, because I am in need of a problem solver. You see, I am Captain Yimik. I am not King Yimik. And so Emil, I'm not going to do the accent because it'll be seen as a... That is not my intention. So, so Emil's immediately saying, right, okay, well, I'm a bit of a problem solver. What can I do for you? So he wants to become the king. Sorry, so Captain Yimik wants to become the king. Now he tells us of a king by the name of Kroll, I believe his name was. I have 11 pages of notes here, and I haven't read through them before I did this, and I really should. King Clark. Sorry. So Clark is a bugbear. Do you know what a bugbear is? None of us do. Which is good, which I should have remembered really, because I did ask later on, are bugbears sunlight sensitive? And the DM said, of course, you don't know. Fair enough. So, anyway. So we have to strike a deal. We kill this King Clark, the bugbear, who is living in the cave that we didn't explore before, and I think we would have been in better condition to do so as well. But I'm rather glad we didn't for what's about to follow. So the deal is that we kill this bugbear, who is assisted by a goblin and a wolf, and in return we will have the release of Sildar Hallwinter. Problem. Sildar is not coming with us. Emil could not get him, because apparently he is a greedy dwarf. So, Emil now has to basically take these two goblins with him to fight the boss. However, he doesn't trust these two goblins that are going to join him, because he doesn't know if they're going to turn tail and, work for the bugbear. And a bit of metagaming here. I have read that goblins are quite servile. They tend to follow whoever's the biggest, baddest creature, and bugbears are pretty big, bad creatures. at least from the one I created anyway for D&D Beyond. Bentley the Bugbear take on Spyro Year of the Dragons. Bentley the Yeti. Anyway, moving swiftly on. So we had to basically slay this King Clark. Now, there was an ultimatum. We couldn't really work things out, and bear in mind as well that they weren't entirely convinced that Emil had killed these creatures on his own. Although he wouldn't have been all that surprised if he had, bearing in mind those 3 wolves. This Captain Yimik wasn't really particularly bothered about. Scree was and the other 2 goblins were no match for him. No match for Emil at all, really. So how he was going to take on these 4 new goblins in the state that he was, because they did notice he wasn't in the best nick. They start circling around him now, getting a bit closer, making sure that he doesn't run and he doesn't get to Silda. Now, in the meantime, Garveld is watching this, sort of signalling to Eliza, telling her to get a longbow or shortbow ready. And she does the same to Shori to just say, hey, look, guys, we might need to back up. We can hear this entire conversation going now, and we're getting ready to move back in case Emil does come out with these goblins in tow. And we were thinking that maybe we might be able to even lure them out, kill those 2, go back and take out Captain Yimik and his one of his bodyguards, who we would find out to be is called Torrig. Now, this plan fails when Eliza tries to budge past me and see if she can get a shot on one of the goblins with an arrow. Unfortunately, her stealth check fails when she kicks a pebble right into the center of this gathering. So you've got Emil here, some goblins here. The pebble lands square in the center, and Captain Yimik immediately says, immediately. Take a shot every time I say immediately. He says, well, so much for being alone, eh? Emil immediately begins combat. He makes his way, I'm not saying immediately, he makes his way to one of the goblins, not Yimik, and begins to strike, and I don't think he hits. No, he doesn't. He misses, and unfortunately, combat begins. Initiative order is the goblins roll 9, I believe. I roll 11, Eliza rolls 19, and Shori rolls 11. I didn't actually get what Emil had on the initiative. So he takes his first strike and he misses, and now this other goblin is going to his side, and he's sort of trying to take him 2-on-1. Now, because both the DM and Emil had role-played this so spectacularly and improv the entire thing, not expecting this to really happen, I think we all wanted Emil to have the kill, have the Captain Yimik kill. Unfortunately, that wasn't to be the case, as we would later find out. Eliza rushes in with a rapier, gets a nat 20 and does 12 damage to one of the goblins towards the back, having rushed past them and immediately taking one out. I then join in the battle as well, and I hit one of the goblins for 4 damage. Probably with the Warhammer, I imagine. I haven't actually got that note here. Now, Eliza, I think, either hits another goblin or she takes 5 points of damage. She has taken quite the beating in the session. And she does say at the end that we may need a short rest. So she has hit, or she gets hit for 5 points of damage. Now, Yimik does so badly on his turn after myself and Eliza that his sword bounces off Emil's shield and he's disarmed. Now, shortly after that, I'm just having to check my notes. So the sword bounces off Emil's shield, and He's disarmed, and now I sort of move away. I have to go away temporarily. Not in the game. I mean, I'm talking like me as a player. I sort of have to step away, so I don't realise that he picks up his weapon as an action. Because otherwise I would have sort of tried to kick it away. And I move in, and at this point we're all sort of starting to circle now. We're starting to circle around Yimik, and I toll the dead. I do 4 damage to one of the goblins, and oh yeah, Shoria also attacks the goblin chief as well, I think. And we're all sort of observing as well that, you know, we really should allow Emil to have this moment. But as Sam said, it's like in Firefly. He needs to do this on his own. He's like, no, shoot them. You know, I really do need the help. Shoot them. So yes, I've not seen Firefly. I heard it's from the makers of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, so I'll definitely have to check that out at some stage. And now Yimik is in this rather. Because he's still in quite good nick, he's getting frustrated now. So he tells this other goblin by the name of Torik, who's now run up to Sildar Hallwinter to slice his throat, and so he does. So he slices his throat, and he's immediately trying to sort of get back into the combat. However, he doesn't really do that much to Sildar. Sildar is now unconscious, but on the next round of combat, I'm able to use Spare the Dying, make sure that he's at least stabilised and unconscious, if unconscious, and now the combat can resume properly. We don't have to worry so much about that. So, so I think Shoria finally gets the final hit on this creature as we're all sort of wailing on Yimik. I think the presumption was that maybe he's either the strongest goblin, and he was. He did seem to be have greater strength in his arm when he was wailing on Emil with his scimitar. So we assume that this one was the tougher one, and the other ones were easier to deal with. Shoria managed to get this final hit on the cap, dealing 23 damage. Doing 8 damage, and it kills him. He gets pushed. Oh yes, he's hit so hard with the Eldritch Blast, he gets pushed back to the western wall. And Emil, as he's talking to this dying goblin, he says, "You should have taken the deal." So this other goblin now surrenders. This Torik, he throws his weapon down and he goes, "I surrender, I surrender." To which point, thinking that this party is a bit kinky, begins to proceed to untie Sildar, not so kinky, and tie up the goblin, very kinky. So we tie up this goblin and we start to interrogate him, and sort of heal Sildar's wounds using the last lay of hands that Emil has to sort of bring him back to consciousness. So we learn quite a lot of information from this, and I'm rather glad we spared one goblin to interrogate, because we've now got 2 sources of information to compile, and we also have a potential ally. So we learn of someone called the Big King, who is in Cragmaw Castle, and that is where Gundren Rockseeker has been taken. Now, the Big King is not the one that's in the cave. That is King Krog, I believe. I keep forgetting his name. I apologise. My notes are all over the place. King Gruul. King Gruul, I believe his name is. Yeah, no, it's got to be King Krog. I'm getting lost, okay? I've got to look at all this stuff, okay? I don't type it down, I should, but if I'd probably be much faster and easier to edit later on. Never mind, I like having paper notes. Anyway, so we find out that there's this big king from the goblin Torik, who's in Cragmaw Castle, and that's where Gundren is. However, Sildar, now that he's awake, also has a lot of information for us as well. So, Sildar tells us that this wasn't just a simple mining operation, that we weren't just to take these items to Phandelver. If we did a good enough job at escorting the cart, not that they're really expecting all that much trouble, they had believed that we might even become business partners and perhaps even oversee the mining operations in Phandelver. Because this mine isn't just known for its mineral wealth, it is the source of two things. One, the Phandelver Pact, where humans, dwarves and gnomes had agreed to share the resources of this mine in peace, so that they may all prosper. And as well, it is also the I guess where the home. I don't know why I struggle to say that. It is also the home of the Forge of Spells, I believe it was. The Forge of Spells. Yes, the Forge of Spells. So, yeah, so they were going to share this mine as soon as it was sort of dug up, and all the mineral wealth was there. So there's a lot more to gain than just the 35 gold pieces and perhaps the 200 gold that we're apparently going to get at the end of the mining operation as our contribution if we agree to stay on a bit longer. Now then, Cragmaw Castle is marked on Eliza's map that was given to her by Gundren Rockseeker earlier. Sildar also has a few resources that he can tell us about with his information, telling us where this mine is, and also as well that we have allies that we can turn to in Phandelin, although it's unusual that we haven't heard from one Jarno Albrecht, a wizard. And the next session as well will be a good idea as to find out how people react to a wizard, because the way it was described to me here is that it's not very common for wizards to be in Phandelin, this small town, so we'll get to see how high or low fantasy or magic this setting is in this coming Saturday, fingers crossed. But we do have some allies now in Hallwinter's faction. I forget the name because I haven't got the old notes. And there are sort of bandit concerns that Sildar Hallwinter's order had been concerned about, and that's why Jarno was there, and that may or may not be related to the goblins here as well. So, well, yes, we also find out as well that there is someone in this Cragmaw Castle called the Black Spider who appears to be overseeing a lot of these things, but we're not entirely sure. We may have to compile our resources with Jarno and collaborate in the next session. So this then leaves the matter of what do we do with this King Clark? What do we do with King Clark? This cowardly goblin had, of course, agreed to help us take out Clark, on the proviso, of course, that he would become the king. Fair enough. King Torrig sounds quite nice, so we agree with it. In the meantime, we take Sildar out as we loot the corpses. We find upon Captain Yimik's corpse, we find 3 gold teeth, and we find a few coppers as well. I don't think it was all that many. I'm not sure. You just have to bear with me. Oh yes, real King Groll. Big King is real King Groll. He'd commanded the kidnappings. 15 silver. We found the 3 gold teeth are worth 1 gold piece each. That's not too bad. So 15 silver pieces have gone to the party coffers, and we'll divide that when we get to Phandelin. So we all go outside to where the campfire was, crossing the stream on the side, so towards the eastern side where we rested. Where we ended the last session. And we're at the campfire now. And we're resting up, and we take a short rest, so Shoria's got her spells back, and we can sort of use our hit die to heal up. And everyone does pretty well, I think. Eliza gets a nat 10, so that's a maximum hit points for a fighter, plus 2, so she gets 12 hit points back. Emil heals for 5, that's not too bad, and Shoria gets 3 hit points back, so I think that tops her back up to about 6 HP, so she's not too in too bad shape. Sildar also rolls 1d8 plus 1, so he gets 8 hit points back. Now things seem rather calm as we're having a short rest. We take about an hour and we decide what we're going to do next. So that's when our rest is interrupted by Toreg. Now, we fell for one of the classic blunders, didn't we? The first one, of course, is that you don't start a land war in China, or Korea, rather. However, the next one, of course, and less well known than that, is always check to see if you've tied a goblin up correctly. It's the classic, isn't it? That you've got to make sure you've done a proper perception check. You always have the strongest character to tie the ropes. You've got to make sure that their arms aren't going to fall off to gangrene, and that and then they proceed to run away armless. Yeah. So Toreg runs up to us, thinking that he might have escaped, and he wants to know that we were taking too long. He wants us to know that we're taking too long, and that he wants his title. So we now start to plan. Shoria casts an illusion spell that she maintains. It is a treasure chest. And she says, right, we're going to try and lure King Clarg out with this treasure chest that we've hauled in. Or rather, the goblins have hauled in. However, upon hearing all this planning and commotion, Gauze in the bushes, tied up, he's sort of shouting as well, hey, what's going on? Why is he becoming king? What's going on? Can I have something to eat as well, please? And I am tempted to sort of go over the river and throw him some rations, but I don't really want to do an athletics check with the luck we've been having. I personally blame D&D Beyond. I think we all did at that point. So this goblin over there, we sort of kept him there. We're trying to tell him to hush it, because we want him, we don't want him to spoil the plan. And we said that if he helps us, if he survives this, he can become Vice King. And he goes, Vice King, what's that? And we are saying, we'll tell you later. So anyway, so we use this illusion spell to summon the image of this chest. This goblin, Toreg, who we left in the cave, has now freed himself. He's going to bring Clarg out. It must take about 5 or 6 minutes to do so. And we're hiding in the bushes now, waiting for Clarg to come over. And he comes out with a goblin and his wolf. And in front of him is Toreg. So, the king is saying, well, it's my chest, but you're my minions. Go and get it, Toreg. And Toreg is looking around in the bushes, seeing us, but not really seeing anyone else. And is looking for any excuse to not get the chest, to make Clarg go over the river and get it. And he's, yes, but you're the king, you're the majesty, you should have the first touch of the chest, surely. He not just persuades him, it's the best persuasion I think a goblin has ever had. I don't have the rolls written down here, but by God, it was amazing. King Clarg, he sort of nodded and he's thinking, I suppose it is my duty. And he begins to march into the river. Now, this is some art of war right here. He is in the water. Okay, so he has penalties to movement imposed. Eliza is in the bushes, and she shoots hard, and she gets 4 damage. Surprise round begins. Let's read the initiative roll. Eliza gets another attack. I think Eliza gets another attack at 17. Sildar rolls 18 as initiative as well, I think. The king and the goblins roll 16 and 17 respectively. I roll 10. Shoria rolls 10.1 again. I think we decided that she'd be better off because she can use her sleep spell to great efficiency. Emil has an initiative of 5, and Clarg's wolf is has an initiative of 3. So combat begins, and we now make sure that we're doing enough damage. So Shoria is now sleeping the target, so she gets to 3 targets. So she goes for the goblin that was in Clark's company, she goes for the wolf, and she goes for Clark himself. Unfortunately, all of these hit points are distributed in just the way we need them. So we could either sleep the goblin and the wolf, or we could sleep Clark, who's now in the water and has movement penalties imposed. Also, we think bugbears, as it turns out, are quite gangly beasts. So there goes my plan for Bentley the bugbear, who's a rather stocky fellow. We're not here to talk about him, though. So, after some mulling and cogitating, we decide at the end of the day that Shoria should sleep the bugbear, King Clark. And he goes down like a house of cards, and he's not only does it go down in the stream, it's shallow enough. It's shallow, but it's not so shallow that he can't drown. So Shoria has to roll a d20, and he's drowning. And he's also being washed away ever so slowly. He's got to make 3 saving throws, or he dies. So that was rather fun. So, thinking that this wolf is not particularly wise, I think I then cast Toll the Dead. Unfortunately, this wolf that I've now charged up to is not exactly... it's incredibly wise. It wouldn't be intelligent. I think that was my thinking. This wolf is incredibly wise, and it just completely ignores this hum of the bell coursing through the air, and it now turns to me. So Emil rolls a 6 to hit the wolf, and it skillfully dodges. I think that was rather generous wording there, really. Yes, and the wolf is still focused on me. Eliza gets a 1 and a rapier hit to try and hit the bugbear now in the stream, and the DM was feeling rather generous then by not allowing Eliza to lose her weapon down the stream. And personally as well, I think that might have been a bit unfair. I mean, it's a 1, things like that happen, but to lose, your only melee weapon, I think, yeah. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm sure we would have found it at the end of the day. We would have taken the time to find it, so it's not all that bad. And in the end, I do actually think that was quite fair. So anyway, Eliza doesn't lose a weapon, but she just misses, basically. So now Torrig rolls a 20, and he attacks this wolf, and he does 8 damage. He gets a natural 20, hits this wolf for 8 damage, and it howls in pain, but it's not going down. Now this other goblin, who was accompanying the king, in a rather surprising twist of fate, and we're really glad that we didn't sleep him, he turns on the wolf, and he managed to get a pissy little 2 damage. At this point, we observe that the NPCs are rolling better than us. Clark performs his con save, and Shoria is now attacking the wolf for 1 whole damage. So at least she hits, and the DM actually says that you could swear you could hear the wolf laugh. If a wolf could laugh, it would probably be very much like what's going on now. I made a point here to say I am the one and only, and I was tempted to sing I am the one and only, if only for inspiration, but I'm not a bard, and I probably wouldn't have got inspiration for that either. So yeah, as we're sort of whacking away at these enemies, I think I just said at this point, like, I just used my warhammer to hit him, and Sam, who's playing Emil, does say here, I love how tired everyone is, that we're just so fed up that we just want the combat to be done. And truthfully, I think we were all having a good time, but we were just so sick and tired of the rolls being so low. So anyway, Emil rolls for 17 damage and manages to do 8 damage. And our poor DM, who's a Christian and doesn't particularly like swearing, he did partake by saying, I didn't think I'd say this, but how do you want to kill this sodding bloody wolf? and so I think Emil as well just doesn't waste any time, and I think, was it Emil? I can't remember. I don't think I've got the notes there. No. So I think Emil just sort of hits him with his hammer, and or someone does. I don't know. I haven't got the notes on who actually hits. So yeah. So now, now that the wolf is dead, all eyes are upon the King Clarg in the water, drowning. Still drowning. Sildar, not being able to quite reach, throws his axe at King Clarg. I should have mentioned earlier as well that Sildar has no weapons of his own. I almost parted with my shield, but the DM was kind enough to say, your shield matters too much to you, Grave Cleric. Keep it. Because it's got the symbol of Kelmvor on it. Scratched into it, so yeah. It's his holy emblem, and if I can't cast any spells with that, so yeah. But to protect another, I was willing to hand it over. So I don't think in future I will do that. I was going to cast Shield of Faith to give him his +2 AC, but no, that wouldn't have really been enough, and it would have used a spell slot that I wish I'd used. To be honest, I wish I actually had a chance to use my ability that does 3d10 damage. I can't remember what it's called. So we're all turning here now. I think Eliza had given him Sildar a hand axe, and inflict wounds. That was a spell. So she's given him a hand axe. So he throws his hand axe at him, and does he hit? I don't think so. I think he misses, or I think it lodges it in, like barely scrapes him. His body convulses. That was it. Yes, he throws the axe, his body convulses. So apparently something happens when he's rolling saving throws and he takes damage. I think it was like critical hit or advantage or something like that. I don't quite know. We didn't find out exactly what happens. That's something I need to read up on as well. Especially as a cleric of the grave, I need to know what's happening to my party members or other NPCs, or rather, all NPCs. Party members are NPCs when they're down for the count. So Eliza hits for 16 damage, and he hits for 16, does 12 damage to his bottom. Toreg then goes to attack the king. 21 attack, 3 damage. And then the other goblin jumps into the stream to stab Clarg, does 3 damage. Now Gauze breaks free of the rope, so he's in the bushes, and he attacks with his claws and unfortunately misses. Now Clarg awakens miraculously. I don't know how the hell he survived all the things that have happened to him, but yeah, he survives, and he's saying, "Who's been striking me?" And begins to see his wolf. His wolf is slain and he's heartbroken, and now he's filled with rage. And so he attempts to attack Toreg, and he doesn't hit. So Shoria Eldritch blasts Clarg, managed to shoot above most of our heads really, and does 10 damage. And Clarg is hanging on by a thread. Now I'm rather pleased with that. I'm a bit disappointed that no one else managed to get this kill. But on the other hand, I get this title. So Garveld tolls the dead, and he's gone. I am Garveld the Kingslayer. And I'm very pleased with that. So he tolls the dead, and this sound of this bell is vibrating violently through his body. And he doesn't explode, but he's shaking violently. I think his organs are just melting from within. His spirit is just shattered. And his eyes roll into the back of his head, and he falls down and just slumps, and he's starting to go down the stream. Now Sildar manages to catch him and bring him to the shore. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, I should have mentioned. Oh no, it's right. This comes shortly after. So Sildar grabs the body of King Clarg and pulls it to the shore, and now Emil asks, "So, who's gonna be the king?" There are 3 goblins here. Now, unfortunately, the party's now sort of like readying actions to make sure that things are going to go okay. And we have to be very careful who we support here, because we have agreed to allow Gauze from the bushes, attacking with claws, to go free. we did say that we would allow him to go free. We'd also promised Toreg as well that if we keep him alive, he will help us fight the king, and he will become king himself. And this other goblin we didn't have a deal with. So now these three goblins are sort of attacking each other, and Toreg's in the middle. And he unfortunately kills Gors, who was my favourite goblin. He was the one who I cauterised with a torch and nearly burnt down all the Neverwinter Woods. And unfortunately he's killed. And I'm glad it was quick. I'm glad it was swift. And he died, swiftly and with very little pain. I've never felt so strongly for a neutral evil creature. Even one that I may have made, like Mr. Barthelmet, for instance. But anyway, so poor Gors falls at the blade of Toreg, and now we start to attack this other goblin that was accompanying King Clark, because even though he'd helped us kill the wolf, we didn't have a deal with him, so it was fine to kill him. So we begin striking at him, and I don't know... Oh yes, I think I managed to kill that goblin as well. And Toreg... he's going, I'm the king, and he starts stabbing at the corpse, and I'm sort of glaring down at him, and I have to go into this monologue about how I don't really agree with his behaviour, because I'm the cleric of the grave, and I believe in in pride and dignity and dying, and this is not dignified. So I stare him down and I tell him, stop doing that, and so he does. He does. I sort of. He drops his weapon and I kick it into the stream, or I bat it out of his hand into the stream, and he says, "Hey, that's my weapon. What am I going to do without my weapon?" I can't do the voice like Andy Anders. He does a fantastic goblin voice, and I said, "Do without." Still staring him down. Do without. And so he picks up this other goblin's weapon and he just plunges it into this body. I'm really pissed off. Like, I will take any excuse to kill Toreg at this point. I will gladly break the party's promise to him. But but the only thing that held me back was, look, we do have a paladin in the party. He is, he hasn't taken his oath yet, but we are good characters, and I'm not going to kill him. So Emil, I think, probably in as a favour for healing him and getting him up, I think he sort of gives us an excuse to kill this annoying little turd. So Emil asks, so now that you are a king of all these dead servants, what are you going to do now? How are you going to enjoy your kingdom of the dead? And he says, Toreg goes, well, I'll just go to Cragmaw Castle and get reinforcements. And you're not going to be raiding the passers-by, are you? Emil asks. The goblin, I don't think, even performs perception, because I don't think he even performs deception, because he's just lying through his front teeth. So Emil doesn't even need to roll for damage, because I think A, the DM wanted to go and see the wife, and B, we'd had enough bad luck as is. Emil just shakes his head. Wrong answer. I did say I'd stop doing the answer. The voice. I can't help it. I'm sorry. It's my reflex. He just brings his warhammer up against this guy's teeth, just shattering them, just launching them down the stream. If his jaw is still hanging on, it's only by the vaguest bit of bone and sinew and cartilage. And he just kills him. He just kills this goblin. So, basically, everyone is dead. The party is now getting ready to re-enter the cave and look at all the supplies that were in King Clark's throne room. Meanwhile, I'm outside. I'm piling up the bodies, burning them with my tinderbox, which I didn't consume, which makes sense. But why didn't we do that? Oh, I couldn't have done it on wounds before, could I? Never mind. So I pile up the bodies. It takes about 1 minute to pile them up, burn, and I perform my prayer. As everyone's doing that, I go around the rest of the cave, making sure all the bodies are piled up and burnt, say the prayer, and I go back. I'm missing out on a lot of the loot and things like that, and the sort of post-battle talk, but that's fine. And we find in Clark's throne room, we see that coals are burning up in the fireplace. There's several crates of provisions lining the walls, as well as a few bedrolls. Shory is looking for papers and any other sort of documents, any sort of correspondence that might tell us that whereabouts Cragmaw might be, any doodles and maps and things like that. Anything on this Black Spider character or King Groll. Now she sees crates. On the crates she sees a symbol, which is a shield and the face of a lion on the shield. And on the map that we will later see, we do actually come across a building called Lion Shield Headquarters or something like that. I'll just bring it up actually because I can finally load it up on the PC. Because Christ, the laptop took ages to load up. Oh, hello. Eliza's here in roll 20. Yeah, so anyway, so while we're looking at that, yeah, so the Sildar saying that the crates belong to the shops. Where was it? Lion Shield Costa. I don't know what a Costa is or who a Costa is. Yes, not Costa as in Costa Coffee, Coster. Anyway, so the crates seemingly belong there, and there's also a lot of money lying around here. There's 600 copper, there's 110 silver pieces, we are absolutely swimming in it, and there are 2 healing potions, and a jade frog statue. Now, I think when we get back to town, I might perform a religion check on that. I assume this might have just come from a random loot table or whatever, but it might have some significance. We might even be able to use it. Actually, I've got an idea for that. Maybe keep a hold of it and convince some goblins or other creatures that it is in fact an idol of their god, and they wouldn't want to, disgrace this idol, would they? They better do what it says. I can come up with quite a few ideas with this, some of them involving minor illusion, I think. But I shall have to run that by the party and indeed the DM. Unless, they might have sold it by the time the game begins. So anyway, so yeah, I think I've got plans for a religion check on that. So yeah, the 2 healing potions go to myself and Shoria. The logic behind that being that I'm the healer, so basically I'm the only person who can really sort of stabilize people with that medicine kit, which we must buy. I think I'm gonna have to pile a shopping list of things we're gonna need. Component pouches, medicine, rations, things like that. Anything that might make the journey a bit more comfortable as we're out and about. Yes. Oh, that reminds me. I might have to ask as well. See if I can get some money in that arms box as well. Not for Garveld. It will honestly go to the church. That's the kind of character he is. He doesn't really care about cash, but he does care about it going to the church and helping out. That's something else I need to check as well. Is there a church in this place? Anyway. Yeah. So the alarm on the neighbour's shed had decided to go off. Anyway. Yeah. So we gather all this wealth. And so we take the health potions. I have one so that I can heal the party and keep them alive in some fashion. And Shoria takes one as well because she's the squishiest member of the party. She doesn't really have much in the way of... Oh, no, she has leather armor, but that's only 11 AC. She has no dexterity modifier. And, yeah, that's really all we loot. Because we've dealt with the main threat, we basically teleport to Phandelver just as everyone's getting ready to go to bed and sort of close up all the shops, get off for the night. We've dealt with the main threat, so there's no random encounters. We find the cart just fine, and we deliver the supplies. And we're going to find out what happens in the next session. Now, we did actually get a chance to see the map, as I'm just having a look now, and we did come across a Shrine of Luck. And I really wish we'd gone to Phandelver before we went to the cave. So we've learned a lot from this. We have learned to better communicate. We have learned to better position. To have maybe a code word or something like that. That's something else as well. I really want to incorporate the number 89 into our work. Maybe something about the centipede. Like the code being, Mr. Barthelmett's been bit by the centipede. That could say there's a bit of danger. You know, that could be part of Thieves' Camp, maybe. I don't know. It consists of 89. The alphabet is 89 symbols. I don't know. But yeah, we do need to work on things like that, like team tactics and whatnot. But that'll come with more experience. We've only had 3 total sessions, especially as a group. So, and having a sort of 2 weeks between sessions, we haven't really had much experience. Yeah, so that'll get there in the end. Yeah, so that's really the session. We've had lots of feedback. Oh, and we level up as well. Everyone here is level 2, and we're about to take a long rest. I think I'm going to be taking Cure Wounds as my spell. And yeah, I now get 3 spell slots. It's so good. I can finally cast spells without so much worry. I might actually be able to get off inflict wounds without worrying that I'm gonna miss, because at least I've got one of the spell slots. Oh God Almighty! And oh dear. Yeah, and yeah. I think I'm looking forward to that. I think I might actually be able to survive. But that said, the DM did say that there are some areas coming up that might end up just killing us, because with the rolls we've been having today, things aren't looking good. I don't know, maybe the rolls will alternate. We'll have a good session and a bad session. Yeah, like we did last time. We had a fantastic session with rolls then. And today we've just done piss poorly, but we've muddled through. And I think that says a lot about our tenacity, that we made it through all of this. We made it through a 3 3/4 hour session. And we rolled piss poorly. So yeah, so that's our adventure. I apologise for so much blathering on throughout, but it was a lot to get through, and I honestly didn't think we'd be doing this. I thought we'd just be fighting a couple of creatures, maybe some sort of ogre, and we'd just be done, and we'd level up at the end. But I am glad, after all that, I am glad it didn't go that way. I'm glad things went as disastrous as they did, because it made a brilliant story. I had a whale of a time, and once again I must thank my players and my DM and our DM for such a great session. So fingers crossed we'll have a few more quests that might be a bit safer, might have a bit more roleplay in the town, and yeah, maybe a bit more exploration as well. So thank you for watching. Take Claire. No, don't take Claire. No, don't. Honestly, take care is what I meant to say. And may you roll better than we do, and don't roll on D&D Beyond.